Yes. Good morning, everyone, and good morning, dear students. Once again, welcome for the chemistry webinar. Myself, Mrs. Sridevi Polu, Principal, TSMS Pudur, and also the chemistry coordinator for the TSMS webinar sessions, is privileged to introduce you the speaker of the day, Mrs. T. Madhavi, PGT Chemistry from TSMS Pudur, Vikarabad. Dear children, you already know that Madhvi ma'am has taught you many lessons. See, she started this webinars with electrochemistry, and she has taught us surface chemistry, 15th group elements, 16th group elements, 17th group elements, and the zero group elements. And today, again, madam has joined us, and she has extended her support and coordination to me in delivering such wonderful sessions. I sincerely thank Madhvi ma'am for giving such wonderful sessions. Good morning, Madhvi ma'am. Good morning, ma'am. Really, I appreciate your efforts, ma'am. See, you have delivered such a wonderful sessions to us, and you have prepared all these sessions with lot of patience. I thank you, ma'am. I wholeheartedly thank you, Madhvi ma'am. And dear children, today Madhvi ma'am is going to teach the D and F block elements, children. See, what are these D and F block elements? The elements in which the differentiating electron enters into the D orbital are called as D block elements. And the elements in which the differentiating electron, that is the last electron, enters into the F orbital are called as F block elements. And this chapter is a very, very interesting one, children. And regarding the coordination compounds, you have to note that you will get many questions for your objective sessions from these coordination compounds. And do you know the specific properties of D block elements? See, the D block elements are also called as transition elements, means all D block elements are not transition elements, and all transition elements are D block elements. This difference Madhvi ma'am is going to tell you with a lot of examples. And let us welcome Madhvi ma'am. Good morning, ma'am. Today, which topics you are going to deal, ma'am? Madhvi ma'am, you are in the mute, ma'am. Please unmute yourself. Good morning, Madhvi ma'am. Please unmute yourself, ma'am.
Yeah, ma'am. Good morning, ma'am.
Yeah, now it's okay, ma'am.
Yeah, ma'am. Good morning. Thank
Good
you,
morning, ma'am. I welcome you for the chemistry webinar session again. So still we need your support and coordination for giving us wonderful sessions, ma'am.
Thank you so much, ma'am. Thank you.
Today, which topics you are going to deal with, ma'am?
Ma'am, general properties of D block elements, ma'am.
Ma'am, a little bit louder voice, ma'am.
General properties of D block elements, ma'am.
Okay.
Ma'am, is it?
So you are going to discuss the general properties of transition elements.
Yes,
okay.
ma'am.
Okay.
Voice is a little bit low.
Yeah, now it's okay, ma'am.
Okay.
Now it's okay.
Thank you. Thank you.
Okay, ma'am. I would like to hand over the session to you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Good morning, everyone. Warm welcome to Telangana Model School webinars for intermediate second year. So chemistry sessions. So today we are going to discuss 7th chapter, children, in your second year, that is D and F block elements and coordination compounds. Okay, very interesting chapter, and you will get many questions from this chapter in your IP. So let us discuss these D and F block elements and coordination compounds. Let us have a quick review on D and F block elements. So children, here in this chapter, two parts are there, D and F block elements and coordination compounds. So for this session, we are going to discuss only D block elements. Now see what are the subtopics that the D and F block elements consist of. The transition elements, D block elements are called as transition elements. We'll see why these elements are called as transition elements. So their general properties we will discuss, and then some important compounds of transition elements. In that, potassium dichromate, that is K2Cr2O7, and potassium permanganate, that is KMnO4. So these two important compounds of transition elements, the preparation, properties, and the structure we are going to discuss. And next one, inner transition elements. So F block elements are called as inner transition elements. So their general properties we'll discuss. Again, these inner transition elements are divided into two series, children, lanthanoids and actinoids. So their general properties and we'll discuss. And after that, some applications of D and F block elements we'll discuss. So these are the subtopics we are going to cover in D and F block elements. So in today's session, so what we are going to discuss, so let us see. Today's session, we are going to introduce this transition elements, D block elements and F block elements. And after that, electronic configuration of D block elements, general properties and physical properties. In physical properties, trends in melting points and trends in enthalpies of atomization, variation in atomic and ionic sizes, ionization enthalpies, oxidation states, standard electrode potentials, chemical reactivity and E0 values, magnetic properties. So these subtopics we are going to cover in today's session. So now let us start today's session, children. So D and F block elements. So children, you have an idea of this periodic table, long form of periodic table. If you see here, so already S block, about S block elements in first year you have studied, and P block elements for 13 and 14 group elements also in first year you have studied. So in second year you have 15, 16, 17 and 18 group elements that we have finished in previous sessions. So today we are going to discuss about D block elements. So where these D block elements are present in the periodic table, children? So they are present at the middle of the periodic table. So left side S block elements, right side P block elements, and at the middle of the periodic table D block elements are present. So how many groups comes under D block? From third group to 12th group. Third, fourth, fifth, sixth, seventh, eighth, ninth, 10, 11, 12. Up to third group to 12th group, they comes under D block. Okay, right? So next coming to F block. So where this F block is present, children? So at the bottom of the periodic table. So this is S block, this is P block, and at the middle of the periodic table, D block is present, and at the bottom of the periodic table, F block elements are present. Okay, so the F block elements consists of two series in which 4f and 5d orbitals are progressively filled. So F block consists of how many series? Just now only we have discussed. So the first group, 4f series and 5f series. 4f series are called as lanthanoids, and 5f series elements are called as actinoids. Okay, they are kept separately at the bottom of the periodic table. Okay, so now there are mainly four. Now coming to the D block consists of four series, that is 3D, 4D, 5D, 6D. So 3D means the differentiating electron means last electron is entering into the 3D orbital. So those elements are called as a 3D series of elements, and 4D series means the last differentiating electron entering into the 4D orbital. So those are called as 4D series of elements, and 5D means so last electron is entering into the 5D orbital, and the 6D means the last electron is entering into the 6D orbital. So like that, D block elements are they are divided into four series. So 3D series starts from scandium to zinc. So scandium 21 atomic number and zinc is 30, and 4D series from yttrium to cadmium, and 5D series. So children, here little bit concentration is required. Lanthanum. After lanthanum, electrons will add in 4f orbital. Okay, so that's why lanthanum and hafnium to mercury. Lanthanum, after lanthanum, electrons fill in 4f, that is cerium to lutetium. So those are called as lanthanoids. After 4f electrons, then electrons will fill in 5D, right children? So next, coming to 6d. 6d starts from actinum, and after actinum, electrons will fill in 5f. Okay, so that is thorium to lawrencium. You can see here, children. I'll show you. So thorium to lawrencium. So up to that, the electrons will fill, and that is called, those are called as actinoids. After that, um, rutherfordium to copernicium. Okay, so these are the four D series of D block elements. Okay, so 3D, 4D, 5D, and 6D series of elements. So 3D means scandium to zinc, 4D means yttrium to cadmium, and 5D means lanthanum and hafnium to mercury, and 6D means actinium to actinum and rutherfordium to copernicium. Okay, copernicium means new element, that is 112 element, right children? Next, the elements of F block are called as inner transition metals. Okay, so because the electrons are filling in n minus 2f. Okay, that's why these are called as inner transition metals. So the two series of inner transition metals are 4f and 5f. So 4f consists of cerium to lutetium, cerium to lutetium. These are called as lanthanoids, and 5f series consists of thorium to lawrencium. These are called as actinoids, right children? Okay, so the F block element consists of two series, that is 4f and 5f. 4f is from cerium to lutetium, and 5f is from thorium to lawrencium. So two series of elements F block is having. Now the elements of D block are called as transition metals. D block elements are called as transition metals, and F block elements are called as inner transition metals. Okay, why D block elements are called as transition metals? Because D block elements are present between S block and P block. Is it not? S block elements are highly electropositive elements, and P block at the right side of the P block means 17 group and 16 group elements are highly electronegative elements. Is it not? So these D block elements are present between S block and P block. So their chemical properties are transitional between those of S and P block elements. So because of that, D block elements are called as transition elements. Again, I'm repeating children, D block elements are called as transition metals. Why these are called as transition metals? Because they are present in between S block and P block. Okay, S block elements are electropositive, and P block on right side 16 and 17 group elements are highly electronegative elements. So that's why their chemical properties, D block elements chemical properties are in transitional between those of S and P block elements. So because of that, D block elements are named as transition elements. But according to IUPAC, means International Union of Pure and Applied Chemistry, transition metals are defined as metals which have incomplete d orbitals or d subshells, either in neutral atom or in their ions. Means they should consist of incomplete d orbital, right children? So the metals which are having means for D block elements, +2 oxidation state is the most common oxidation state. So in +2 oxidation state or in or in ground state, they are having incomplete d orbitals. So that's why these metals to remember children. Here zinc, cadmium and mercury of 12th group. See here children, 12th group, zinc, cadmium and mercury. So these are not having incomplete d orbitals. Means complete the d orbital is having completely filled. Means 10 electrons are present in the d orbital, even in the ground state as well as in the most common oxidation state. What is the most common oxidation state? +2 is the most common oxidation state. In +2 oxidation state, what happens? 2 electrons go from s orbital. but d orbital is having 10 electrons, is it not? So because of that, zinc, cadmium and mercury of group 12 are not considered as a transition metals. Again, I'm repeating, children, transition metals means they should consist of some empty d orbitals, but these zinc, cadmium, mercury of 12th group are not having empty d orbital. So d orbital is completely filled. It consists of 10 electrons, right? So because of that, zinc, cadmium and mercury are not considered as transition metals, but they are present at the uh, end of these series, is it not? And for 3D series, zinc is the end element, and for 4D series, cadmium is the end element, and for 5D series, mercury is the end element. So these are end members of the 3D, 4D and 5D transition series. That's why their chemistry is studied along with the transition metals. Is that clear, children? Zinc, cadmium and mercury are not transition elements because they are having completely filled d orbital even in the ground state as well as in the most common oxidation state, that is +2 oxidation state. So that's why they are not considered as a transition metals, but they are present at the end of these series 3D, 4D and 5D series. So that's why they are their chemistry is studied along with the transition metals, right, children? Next, this is about the introduction of D block and F block elements. Now coming to the electronic configuration of D block elements, children. So what is the general electronic configuration of D block elements? N minus 1 D 1 to 10, N is 1 to 2. Very important. What is the general electronic configuration of D block elements? N minus 1 D 1 to 10, N is 1 to 2. Okay, so what is n minus 1 stands for? It is the inner shell, okay, inner d orbital, and which is having electron from 1 to 10. And what is ns stands for? Ns is nothing but outermost s orbital. Ns means outermost s orbital, and n minus 1 stands for inner d orbital. So inner d orbital consists of 1 to 10 electrons, and outermost ns is having 1 to 2 electrons. Okay, right? Let us see. See, children, this electronic configuration is having several exceptions. Okay, we'll consider some examples. So why this general electronic configuration? What is the general electronic configuration? N minus 1 D 1 to 10, Ns 1 to 2. Okay, this general electronic configuration is having several exceptions. Why this electronic configuration is having several exceptions? Because there are the energy difference between n minus d subshell and ns subshell is very less. Okay, that is the one reason. And second reason is half filled and completely filled orbitals are more stable. Okay, so because of these two reasons, the general electronic configuration is having several exceptions. Again, I'm repeating, children, n minus 1 d 1 to 10 and ns 1 to 2 is the general electronic configuration of these transition elements. But here there are some exceptional cases. Why there are some exceptional cases? Because the energy difference is n minus 1d and ns orbital is very little, and the half filled and completely filled orbitals are more stable. So because of these two reasons, what happens, this electronic configuration is having exceptional cases. We can see some examples. In case of chromium, what is the oxidation um, atomic number of chromium is 24, children. So outer shell electronic configuration is a 3D. It should consist of 3D 4 and 4s2, is it not? Because the chromium atomic number is 24, so it should consist of 3D 4 and 4s2 electronic configuration. But because of a little difference between 3D and 4s orbitals, energy difference between 3D and 4s orbital, and more stable half-filled electronic configuration, one electron from s orbital, it will enter into the d orbital. Then the electronic configuration will be 3D 5 and 4s1. Okay, so instead of 3D 4 and 4s2, chromium is having 3D 5 and 4s1. Remember, very important, children, chromium, what is the outer shell electronic configuration of chromium, 3d5 and 4s1, 24 atomic number, 3d5 4s1. It is not instead of 3d4 and 4s2, because 3d5 half filled electronic configuration is very stable when compared with the 3d4 electronic configuration. Because of that, to get stability, 3d5 4s1 configuration, chromium attains 3d5 4s1 configuration. Similarly, one more example you can take, copper. So atomic number of copper is 29, children. So it should its electronic configuration should be 3d9 4s2, but it is having 3d10 4s1 configuration because of the little energy difference between 3d and 4s orbital and completely filled d orbital. If you see here, 3d10 means d orbital is completely filled. So because of completely filled orbital, its stability will be more. So because of that, one electron from s orbital, it will enter into the d orbital. So that's why it is having 3d10 and 4s1 configuration. So what is the electronic configuration? General outer shell electronic configuration for chromium is 3d5 and 4s1, and for copper is 3d10 and 4s1 configuration, because half filled and completely filled orbitals are relatively more stable. Next, so these are the electronic configurations of first series means 3D series, second series means 4D, and the third series means 5D and 6D series. So these are the electronic configuration. If you see here in a first series means 3D series, except chromium and copper, all elements are having 2 electrons in 4s. Only chromium and copper are having 1 electron in the 4s orbital. So you can see the electronic configuration of a remaining series of elements also, children. Okay, so next, coming to the general properties of transition elements. Okay, in that let us see the physical properties. Okay, nearly all transition elements are having metallic properties. We are telling that these are transition metals, we are saying. So it means all the d block elements are metals only. So they are having metallic properties. So what are the metallic properties? They are having high tensile strength, ductility, malleability, high thermal and electrical conductivity, and metallic luster. Okay, d block elements are having metallic properties such as high tensile strength, ductility, malleability, high thermal and electrical conductivity, and metallic luster. Okay, so with the exception of zinc, cadmium, mercury, and manganese, they have one or more typical metallic structures at normal temperatures. You can see, except zinc, cadmium, mercury, and manganese, these elements are having a metallic structure at normal temperature. You can see here, children, scandium, titanium, vanadium, chromium, manganese, iron, cobalt, nickel, copper, zinc. So you can see their lattice structure of these metals. HCP means hexagonal close packing, BCC means body centered cubic structure, and CCP means cubic close packing. So these are having these lattice structures. Okay, right? Next, these transition metals, we have some exceptions like zinc, cadmium, and mercury, because these are not transition elements. So but their chemistry we are studying along with these transition metals, because these are having a completely d orbital, means 10 electrons are present in their d orbital, even in the ground state as well as in the most oxidation state, that is in +2 oxidation state. So these are very hard and have low volatility. All the transition metals except these zinc, cadmium, and mercury are very hard and have low volatility, because mercury is a liquid at room temperature, is it not? So except zinc, cadmium, and mercury are very hard and have low volatility. Their melting and boiling points are high. Okay, because why these are having a melting and boiling points high? Because strong at interatomic metallic bond. Okay, children, why these are having a high melting and boiling points? Because strong interatomic metallic bond will be present, so in between the atoms of these metals. So now see here, why these are having the strong interatomic metallic bonding? Because the involvement of a greater number of electrons from n-1d and ns. You know that n-1d orbital and ns are having a little energy difference. So because of that, The electrons from n minus 1d as well as electron from ns also involved in the interatomic metallic bonding. Okay, so because of that, these are having high melting and boiling points. Okay, is that clear, children? Again, I'm repeating, these transition elements are hard and have low volatility, and they are having high melting and boiling points. Why they are having high melting and boiling points? Because interatomic metallic bondings are present. So why they are having interatomic metallic bonds? Because n minus 1d electrons and ns electrons are involved in the formation of interatomic metallic bonding, because there is a little energy difference between n minus 1d and ns orbital. Okay, so because of that, electrons from n minus 1d and ns also involved in the interatomic metallic bonding formation. So because of that, melting and boiling point of these transition elements are high. Okay, next, in any row, the melting and boiling melting points of these metals rise to a maximum at d5, except for enormous values of manganese and technetium, and fall regularly as the atomic number increases. So you can see here, children, you can see by this graph, if you see here, if we move from left to right, what happens at the middle of the series? At the middle of the series, melting point is high. Okay, so and then it decreases as the atomic number increases. Okay, so it reaches to maximum to at d5, and after that it decreases as the atomic number increases. But in exceptional cases, manganese and technetium are exceptional cases. Otherwise, so at the middle of the series, what happens? Melting and boiling points increases, and after that, what happens? Because at the middle of the series, they are having more unpaired electrons. So because of that, they are having a more metallic interatomic metallic bonding will be more at the middle, because of a more number of unpaired electrons, right, children? So as the atomic number increases, then what happens? These melting points decreases, because number of unpaired electrons decreases, and interatomic metallic bonds also decreases, right, children? So this is the observation. Next, after that, enthalpy of atomization. What is the enthalpy of atomization? So to break the metallic interatomic metallic bonds, the energy required to break the interatomic metallic bonds and bringing the metal atoms into gaseous state, that energy is called as enthalpy of atomization. Okay, so these transition elements are having a high enthalpy of atomization. Why they are having high enthalpy of atomization? Because the at the you can see here, at the middle of the series, these interatomic metallic bonds are strong. So because of that, atomization enthalpy is more. Okay, right? So see, children, variation in atomic and they have high enthalpies of atomization, the maximum at about the middle of the series. So greater the number of valence electrons, stronger is the resultant bonding. So greater the valence electrons, stronger will be the resulting bonding. That's why at the middle, atomization enthalpy is more, because interatomic metallic bonds are strong at the middle, because number of unpaired electrons are more. The metals of second and third series have greater enthalpies of atomization than the corresponding elements of the first series. You can see by this graph. So this is a 3D and this is 4D and 5D. 4D and 5D are having more enthalpies of atomization when compared with 3D. It shows that 4D and 5D are having more metal interatomic bonds. Is it not? So since they are having enthalpies of atomization more when compared with 3D, so they are having more metallic interatomic metal bonding is more in case of heavier transition metals. Again, I'm repeating, children, enthalpies of atomization, if you consider So these are having high enthalpies of atomization because they are having interatomic metallic bonds are strong. At the middle of the series is more strong because they are having more unpaired electrons. Okay, so greater the valency of the electrons, so stronger is the resultant bonding. But when compared with first, second and third series with the first series, the second and third series are having more enthalpies of atomization. Because of that, they are having a metal-metal bonding more strong when compared with the first series of elements. Okay, by seeing this graph, you can able to understand. So at the middle, see, as if you move from left to right, interatomic bonds, metallic bonds increases, so enthalpies of atomization increases. So if you move from right side, means as the atomic number increases, then what happens? Enthalpies of atomization decreases. When comparison with 3D, 4D, and 5D, 4D and 5D are having more enthalpies of atomization with respect to 3D, because these are having more metallic bonds, right, children? This is about enthalpies of atomization. Next, coming to variation in atomic and atomic sizes of transition metals, very important. Okay, so what is that variation in atomic and ionic sizes? You know, children, from left to right, if you move, what happens? Number of electrons increases. So number of electrons increases, the electrons will add in the same shell. So because of that, what happens? Atomic size decreases. Why atomic size decreases? As the electrons are adding in the same shell, so similarly protons will also add in the nucleus. So nuclear charge increases. As the nuclear charge increases, then what happens? Pore shielding effect. So the nucleus, it will attract the outer electrons tightly towards it. So because of that, atomic size decreases if we move in a period from left to right. So similarly, in case of a transition elements also, it is like that only. So if we move from left to right in series, then what happens? Atomic and ionic radius decreases because of increase of nuclear charge. So nuclear charge attracts the outer electrons tightly. So because of that, what happens? The size decreases from left to right in series. Okay, you can see by this graph, left to right, if you move, as the atomic number increases, atomic and ionic radii decreases. Okay, so one more factor you have to see here, children. So comparison between a 3D series and 4D series. So this green color, it shows the 3D series. So 3D series and 4D series, if you see, there is an increase in the atomic and ionic radii. So size is why the size increases from 3D to 4D? Because the electrons are adding in the new shell. Is it not? Top to bottom in a group, what happens? Size increases. So 3D and 4D as usual. So the electrons are adding in the new shell. That's why size increases. But if you see, very, very important, children, concentrate. But if you see 4D and 5D, if you compare 4D and 5D series of this D block, the size difference is very little, is it not? When compared with 3D and 4D, the size difference is large. But 4D and 5D series, the size difference is very less. So very important. So because of lanthanoid contraction. Now what is lanthanoid contraction? So coming to 5D series of elements, the electrons, before filling into 5D, electrons will fill in 4f. Okay, so anti-penultimate shell 4f. The electrons, before filling into 5D, electrons will fill in 4f. That is from cerium to lutetium, means f block elements, lanthanoids, 4f, 14 electrons. So anti-electron will fill 14 f electrons. Okay, 4f consists of 14 f electrons. So after filling 14 electrons in 4f, the electrons will enter into 5D. So because of that, then what happens? Nuclear charge will also increases, is it not? So nuclear charge increases, then poor shielding effect of 4f electrons, because s shielding effect, s orbital is more oriented towards the p is more oriented towards the nucleus, and then d, then f. So that's why f orbitals show poor shielding effect, is it not? So because of that, the outer shell electrons, they get more influenced by the nucleus. So because of that, 5D series elements are having a smaller size when compared with uh, 3D and 4D series. Is that clear, children? So because of that, you can see here the difference of a 3D and 4D is much, whereas in case of 4D and 5D series of elements are having a little difference because of lanthanoid contraction. What is the lanthanoid contraction? Decrease of 5D series of elements, decrease in size of 5D series of elements because of 4f electrons. So in after filling in 4f 14 electrons, then the electrons enter into the 5D. Okay, so 4f electrons shows poor shielding effect. So more nuclear charge, poor shielding effect of 4f electron, it results the attraction of these outer electrons towards the nucleus. So because of that, the size decreases. So this phenomena is called as lanthanoid contraction. So because of this lanthanoid contraction, 5D and 4D series of elements are having nearly similar size. So because they are having nearly similar size, they can show the chemical properties nearly similar. Okay, is that clear? Very, very important point, children. The radii of third, that is a 5D series, are visually the same as those of the corresponding members of a second series. Means 5D series of elements are having nearly same size with that of 4D series of elements. This phenomena is due to the intervention of the 4f orbitals, which must be filled before 5D series of elements begin. The filling of 4f orbitals, 5D orbitals, results in a regular decrease in atomic radii called lanthanide contraction. Is that clear, children? So because of this lanthanide contraction, 4D and 5D series of elements are having, you can see in this graph. So 4D and 5D series of elements are having nearly similar size, because the electrons will fill first 4f orbital, and after that the electrons will enter into the 5D. So poor shielding effect of 4f electrons and more nuclear charge, so it attracts the outer electrons towards it. So because of that, the size of a 5D series elements decreases. So 4D and 5D series of elements are having nearly similar size. Okay, so that is the very important. So what is the lanthanide contraction? Next, you can see this table shows the general properties of transition elements, that is 3D series of elements. So their electronic configuration: 3D scandium, titanium, vanadium, chromium, manganese, iron, cobalt, nickel, copper, zinc. So these are 3D series of elements. Their electronic configuration and their ionization enthalpies, 3 ionization enthalpies are given, children. You can see here. So from left to right, what happens? The size is decreasing. Because of that, ionization enthalpy is also increasing, and first ionization enthalpy is less, and second ionization enthalpy is more, and third ionization enthalpy is very high. Okay, so next, metallic radii and ionic radii is also given here, and the standard electrode potential M2 plus and M3 plus M2 2 plus redox couples electrode potentials are given here, and the densities are also given here. So these are the general properties of a 3D series of elements. You just go through these, children. Next, ionic and ionization enthalpies. So what is ionization enthalpy, children? The amount of energy required to remove an electron from an isolated gaseous neutral atom. Is it not? So ionization enthalpy is, we know that ionization enthalpy is inversely related to atomic size. Is it not? So in a series from left to right, atomic and ionic size, what happens? Decreases. So because of that, the ionization enthalpy increases. So because it is inversely related to the atomic size. So there is an increase in ionization enthalpy along each series of transition elements from left to right due to increase in nuclear charge. So if you move from left to right, what happens? Nuclear charge increases, atomic size decreases. So because of that, ionization enthalpy increases. Okay. Next, similarly, if you compare the ionization enthalpy in series, top to bottom, what happens? Size increases. So from top to bottom, you can see the ionization enthalpies. So from left to right, ionization enthalpies increases because nuclear charge is increasing and atomic size is decreasing. But top to bottom, if you see children, what happens? Atomic size increases, because of that ionization enthalpy decreases. Okay, so that's why 3D series of elements are having more ionization enthalpy when compared with the 4D, 5D and 6D series of elements. Okay, but the variation in this enthalpy is not that much when compared with the non-transition elements like S block and P block. If you compare with those elements, the change, the increase or decrease is not that much when compared with the non-transition elements. So the regular increase, you can see here 631 to 906, top means left to right. If you move, ionization enthalpy is regularly, the change is very less. Okay, whereas in case of non-transition elements like S block and P block elements, the change, if you see, that will be more. Okay, so when compared with those elements, the change in ionization enthalpy is very less. So if you move from left to right, what happens? Ionization enthalpy increases, right? So now you can see here, first ionization enthalpy, second ionization enthalpy, third ionization enthalpy. What is the first ionization enthalpy? The amount of energy required to remove an electron from isolated gaseous neutral atom is called as first ionization enthalpy. Whereas second ionization enthalpy, the amount of energy required to remove an electron from unipositive ion. Okay, so that is more. And what is the second ionization enthalpy? Dipositive ion, the amount of energy required to remove an electron from dipositive ion. Okay, so like that, the charge means positive charge on ion increases, then what happens? The ionic size decreases, because of that enthalpy, ionization enthalpy increases. Is it clear, children? You can see the change. Third ionization enthalpy is very high because that cation, if the cation is having more charge, then the size is very less. So it is very huge amount of energy is required to remove an electron. So that's why ionization enthalpy is very, very high. So that's why third ionization enthalpy is more. Okay, so this is about ionization enthalpy. Next, ionization enthalpy, not only it depends upon size, so it also depends upon the stability, children. So as the stability increases, the ionization enthalpy becomes more difficult. Ionization will becomes more difficult. You can see one example. Mn plus has a 3d5 4s1 configuration, because manganese, what is the atomic number? 25. 3d5 4s2 electronic configuration. If it lose one electron from s orbital, Mn plus ion will form. So what is the electronic configuration of Mn plus ion? 3d5 4s1. So if you want to remove an electron from Mn plus ion, means one electron from s orbital. So it is very easy to remove one electron from 4s, because after losing one electron, d orbital will get half filled configuration. So half filled configuration is a stable configuration. That's why ionization enthalpy for Mn plus is less when compared with the Cr plus. So see children, Cr chromium 24 electronic configuration, just we have discussed, that is 3d5 4s1 configuration. So if it loses one electron from 4s, then what happens? Chromium electronic Cr plus electronic configuration will be 3d5. So if you want to remove an electron from Cr plus 1, then what happens? You have to remove one electron from 3d5, is it not? So 3d5 configuration, already half filled configuration, stable configuration. From stable configuration, you have to remove one electron. So then what happens? More ionization enthalpy is required. So the stability increases, ionization becomes more difficult. Here what happens? Already chromium Cr plus is having 3d5 configuration. From stable configuration, if you want to remove one electron, more ionization enthalpy is required. Whereas in case of Mn plus configuration, if you want to remove one electron, so if it loses one electron, 3d5 half field configuration, it attains half field configuration. So that is a stable configuration. That's why Mn plus easily loses one electron. Ionization enthalpy for Mn plus is less when compared with the Cr plus. So you can take one more example, children, here. Fe2 plus. So Fe2 plus is having 3d6 electronic configuration because iron, your 26 atomic number, 3d6 4s2. After losing 2 electrons from 4s, so Fe2 plus is formed. So what is the electronic configuration of Fe2 plus? 3d6, is it not? So 3d6. So from if you want to ionize, if you want to remove one electron from Fe2 plus, so then what happens? One electron should be removed from 3d6. So then it converts into 3d5. So 3d5 is more stable because d orbital we can able to fill 10 electron. If you fill 5 electrons means half field configuration. So Fe2 plus after losing one electron it attains 3d5 configuration, that is the stable configuration. Half field configuration is the stable configuration. Because of that, ionization enthalpy for Fe2 plus is less. Okay, now coming to Mn2 plus, if you consider, so Mn2 plus is having 3d5 configuration. From Mn2 plus, if you want to remove one electron, then what happens? 3d4 configuration. Already 3d5 means a stable configuration, a half field configuration. So if it loses one electron means a 3d4 configuration. So removing of one electron from half field configuration means the ionization enthalpy will be more. Is that clear, children? So that's why though iron is present at the right side of the manganese, so iron should consist of Fe2 plus should consist of more ionization enthalpy when compared with Mn2 plus, but Fe2 plus is having less ionization enthalpy than Mn2 plus, because after losing one electron it will get a half field configuration, that is 3d5 configuration, that is the stable configuration. That's why ionization enthalpy of Fe2 plus is less when compared with the Mn2 plus. Is it clear, children? The stability increases, the ionization becomes more difficult. Okay, already 3d5 is having stable configuration, that is a half field configuration. So that's why ionization for Mn2 plus will be difficult. Okay, so the third ionization enthalpy of Fe is lower than that of Mn. Okay. Next one is oxidation states, children. So very important thing, that is this when compared with the non-transition elements, the transition elements they show variable oxidation states. Okay, so that's why they can able to form different compounds, complex compounds. So oxidation states, transition elements shows a great variety of oxidation states due to very small energy difference between n-1d and ns subshell electrons from. So electrons from both subshells take part in bonding. Okay, children, why these transition elements they are showing a variety of oxidation states? Because the energy difference between n-1d orbital and ns orbital is very little. So because of that, electrons from n-1d and ns also involved in the bond formation. So because of that, this transition element shows variable oxidation states. If you see here, children, at the middle of the series, like manganese, if you consider, they can show a greater number of oxidation states. Is it not manganese? It is showing from +2 to +7 oxidation state. But at the end of this series, you can see here, so this scandium and copper and zinc, they are showing a less number of oxidation states, whereas at the middle of the series, that is manganese, it is showing a greater number of oxidation states. Okay, now let us see why middle of the elements are showing maximum oxidation states and end elements are showing less oxidation states. As children, the elements which give the greater number of oxidation state occur in or near the middle of the series. Manganese, it is showing from +2 to +7. The lesser number of oxidation state at the extreme ends, scandium and copper and zinc, they are showing less oxidation states. Why they are showing less number of oxidation states? Because now coming to scandium titanium case, they are having very few electrons. So few electrons to share or to lose. Because of that, scandium and titanium are showing less oxidation states. Whereas in case of copper and zinc, they are having too many d electrons. So if they are having too many d electrons, so it is very difficult to share electrons. Because of that, the copper and zinc are showing less number of oxidation states. Whereas in case of manganese, it is having it is present at the middle, so that's why it is neither having too many less or too many more number of electrons. Because of that, manganese is showing greater number of oxidation states. So it is showing from +2 to +7. You can see here, children. So from +2, +2, +3, +4, +5, +6, +7 also manganese, it can able to show +2 to +7 oxidation states. Whereas scandium and titanium, they can show very little oxidation states. Whereas copper and zinc also, they can show very less number of oxidation states. So copper and zinc are having too many electrons, and scandium and titanium are having too less electrons, okay, to share or to lose, right? So because of that, they are showing less number of oxidation states. Next, coming to standard electrode potentials, children. So standard electrode potentials are the measure of the values of total enthalpy change. So what is electrode potential? Electrode potential is nothing but a measure of enthalpy changes. So mainly, if you consider atomization enthalpy and enthalpy of hydration plays an important role for calculation of electrode potential, children. So this is for a 3D series, the values of atomization enthalpies are given, and this is the first ionization enthalpy, and this is the second ionization enthalpy, and this is the hydration enthalpy. So we know that atomization enthalpy is always positive, because metal bond, the energy is required to break the bond between the two metals, that is metallic bonds we have to break, and then metal should be in the gaseous state. That amount of energy is called as atomization enthalpy. So atomization enthalpy is always positive, because we have to supply energy, okay. Whereas in case of first ionization enthalpy is also, what is the first ionization enthalpy? Amount of energy required to remove an electron from gaseous neutral atom. So that this is also positive. We have to give energy to remove an electron, is it not? And second one is second ionization enthalpy. It is very high, because we have to remove an electron from unipositive ion. So high energy is required. So that's why atomization enthalpy and first ionization enthalpy and second ionization enthalpies are positive, whereas the hydration enthalpy is negative. So hydration enthalpy here, so because of hydration, energy is released. So because of that, these are having negative values, whereas atomization enthalpy and first ionization, second ionization enthalpies are positive. So if you add all these enthalpies, because electrode potential is the measure of a total enthalpy change. So if you consider the total enthalpy change, so these are the values of electrode potential of titanium, vanadium, chromium, manganese, iron, cobalt, nickel, copper and zinc, children. So here, if you see here, one observation is very important. Copper is having positive electrode potential. Standard electrode potential of copper is 0.34 positive, whereas other titanium and other remaining elements of this series are having negative values of standard electrode potential, whereas copper is having 0.34, that is positive value, right? So because of that positive value, the unique behavior of copper having a positive E naught value. So because of that, it will not liberate a hydrogen gas from acids, accounts for its inability to liberate hydrogen gas from acids. Only oxidizing acids, nitric acid and hot concentrated sulfuric acid, only copper it will react, because these are oxidizing acids. So they reduce themselves and oxidize copper, okay, oxidizes copper. So because of that copper, it can able to react with these oxidizing acids like nitric acid and the hot concentrated sulfuric acid, and it will not react with the remaining acids like hydrochloric acid and all. Why? Because copper is having positive standard electrode potential. Why it is having positive standard electrode potential? Because the hydration, you can see here children, the hydration enthalpy is not balancing the atomization and ionization enthalpies. Atomization and ionization enthalpies are more when compared with hydration enthalpy. Because of that, the standard electrode potential of copper is more, whereas in other cases ionization enthalpies and atomization enthalpies are less when compared with the hydration enthalpy. Negative values, so we have got negative values, whereas in case of copper, these ionization enthalpies and atomization enthalpies are not balancing hydration enthalpy. So because of that, copper is having positive value. So because of a positive value of copper, the standard electrode potential of copper, it will not react with acids and liberate a hydrogen gas, but it only reacts with oxidizing acids like nitric acid and hot concentrated sulfuric acid. So high enthalpies of transition transform from copper to Cu2 plus aqueous is not balanced by its hydration enthalpy. Very, very important point for competitive examination point of view, children, just you remember. So why copper is not reacting with acids and liberating hydrogen gas? Because it is having positive standard electrode potential, but it can able to react with the oxidizing acids like nitric acid and hot concentrated sulfuric acid, because they reduce these acids, they reduce themselves and oxidize copper. Okay, so now this is about electrode potential of transition elements. Next, coming to chemical reactivity and E0 values, children. Transition metals vary widely in their chemical reactivity. Okay, so we have seen here also here exceptional case of copper, remaining all are having negative values, so they can able to react with acids and they can able to liberate a hydrogen gas, whereas in case of copper, it is not reacting with acids, only reacting with oxidizing acids like nitric acid and hot concentrated acids. Exceptional case of copper, other than remaining all are reacting with acids and they are giving H plus N because they are having a negative electrode potential. Okay, so many of them are sufficiently electropositive to dissolve in mineral acids, although few are noble, that is they are unaffected by single acids. Okay, the metals of the first series, if you consider exception of copper, are relatively more reactive and are oxidized by 1m H plus ions. Remaining all metals of first series of elements, they can able to liberate a hydrogen gas because they can able to react with these acids. Okay, and E0 value for M2 plus and M indicates a decrease in the tendency to form divalent cations across the series. You can see here, children, the values, if you observe these values, the values are goes on decreasing. That's why the capacity to form divalent cation is decreasing across the series. Next, the general trend towards the less negative E0 values is related to the increase in the sum of first and second ionization enthalpies, because less value E0 value means the first ionization enthalpy and second ionization enthalpies are more. Okay, so now redox couple of M3 plus and M2 plus values, if you see, children, titanium is minus 0.37, vanadium minus 0.26, chromium minus 0.41, manganese plus 1.57, iron plus 0.77, and cobalt plus 1.97. It means in the series, some are having a negative and some are having positive. It shows that Mn3 plus, so if you see Mn3 plus and Fe cobalt 3 plus, these are having positive values, so they are strong oxidizing agents, so they reduce themselves and oxidizes another species. Okay, similarly Ti2 plus, vanadium 2 plus and chromium 2 plus are strong reducing agents. So see here, titanium, vanadium, chromium, these are having negative values, so that's why they are strong reducing agents. So what they will do, they oxidize themselves and reduces the another species. You can see one example here, chromium Cr2 plus, when it reacts with H plus, ions from acid, it converts into Cr3 plus. So it is acting like it oxidizing itself, and it reduces H plus ion, because here for hydrogen, what is the oxidation state? +1 is the oxidation state, and in a hydrogen gas, oxidation state is 0 because it is an element. So chromium Cr2 plus, it is oxidizing itself and it reduces H plus ion. So that's why Cr2 plus is a strong reducing agent. So this is about chemical properties, children. Next, magnetic properties. In the next class, we'll finish this, children. So remaining properties we'll discuss in the next topic, next session. I hope you have understood well. So now let us see what are the subtopics that we have covered. Let us see, children. Transition elements. So in that we have introduction. So where these D block elements are present, why these D block elements are called as a transition elements, we have discussed. And electronic configuration. In that, general electronic configuration of these D block elements is n-1, D, 1 to 10, ns, 1 to 2. So in that, general properties we have discussed. Physical properties, trends in the melting points. The melting points of these transition metals are very high, and in series, if you observe, so it is more at the middle of the series, because they are having more valence electrons. So as the and it decreases as the atomic number increases. Next, enthalpies of atomization. It is also, we have seen, children, at the middle it is more, because more interatomic metallic bonds at the middle, because more unpaired electrons. So because of that, interatomic metallic bonds are strong. So enthalpies of atomization is more at the middle of the series, whereas in case of it decreases as the atomic number increases. Next, variation in atomic and ionic sizes. We have seen in a series left to right, what happens? Nuclear charge increases and atomic and ionic sizes decreases. But one important thing we have discussed, children, here. So 4D series and 5D series of elements are having nearly similar size. Why they are having nearly similar size? Because of lanthanoid contraction, means the electrons will fill a 4f orbital. After filling 4f orbital, the electrons will fill in 5f. So because of more nuclear charge and poor shielding effect of 4f electrons, the atomic size of 5D series decreases. Because of that, 5D series and 4D series of elements are having nearly similar size. That is, because of that, they are having similar chemical properties. Next, ionization enthalpies. So ionization enthalpies also we have seen left to right. So atomic and ionic sizes decreases, nuclear charge increases, ionization enthalpies increases. Okay, oxidation states, they show variable oxidation states. So at the middle of the series, the oxidation states, that is manganese, it is showing from +2 to +7 oxidation state, whereas at the end of the elements like scandium to scandium, titanium, and copper and zinc, they are showing less oxidation states, because scandium and titanium are having very few electrons to share or to lose, and whereas in case of copper and zinc, they are having too many electrons to share. So that's why middle elements they are showing, that is manganese is showing a greater number of oxidation states. Electrode standard electrode potential values, in that it is the total enthalpy change. Electrode potential is the total enthalpy change. We have seen in case of copper, it is having a positive value. So because of that, it will not liberate hydrogen gas when it reacts with acids, but it reacts with oxidizing acids like nitric acid and hot concentrated sulfuric acid, because these acids, oxidizing acid, they reduce themselves and oxidizes copper to Cu2 plus, right, children? And the chemical reactivity of E0, chemical reactivity and electrode potential values also we have seen. Magnetic properties, in the next session we will discuss, children. So I hope you have understood well, children. Thank you so much. Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you, Madhvi ma'am, for an excellent presentation of transition elements. As usual, you have given a wonderful session to us. I sincerely thank you, Madhvi ma'am. And dear children, regarding the transition elements, I want to mention one point, children. See, what is the meaning of transition? Transition means a change. See, you can clearly observe the change, how the metals converts into non-metalloids, right? So you can observe such change in these transition elements, and the transition means a change. And how does these elements achieve certain specific properties. The reason for that is presence of unpaired electrons in d orbitals. See, whatever question you get from this topic, you just write the electronic configuration of these elements, right? And you can get the answer, definitely. See, suppose if you get a question, why copper sulfate pentahydrate is blue in color, whereas zinc sulfate heptahydrate is colorless. The reason for that is just draw the electronic configuration, write the electronic configuration. You can find that Cu is in +2 oxidation state and zinc is in +2 oxidation state. When you see clearly, you can observe that copper in +2 oxidation state has one unpaired electron, isn't it? Due to the presence of this one unpaired electron, due to DD transition, okay, so it shows blue in color. Whereas zinc sulfate, zinc is in +2 oxidation state. In +2 oxidation state, it doesn't have unpaired electrons. So the d orbitals are completely filled. See, that's why due to the absence of unpaired electrons, it is colorless. So for whatever question you get from this topic for 2 marks question, you just write the electronic configuration and definitely you are going to get the answer, children. And madam has given number of examples regarding the enthalpy, standard electrode potentials, and all these topics are very, very important for your competitive examinations. So please keep this in your mind and watch our webinar sessions. Stay tuned, children. Stay learning. Thank you everyone for giving us this wonderful opportunity. Once again, I thank Madhvi ma'am for delivering such excellent presentations in chemistry. Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you, ma'am.